Deputy Prime Minister, Honorable Sean Richards of St. Kitts and Nevis, and also Minister of Education, Youth, Sports and Culture. The Honorable Herman Longsworth, Minister of State in the Ministry of Education, Youth, Sports of Belize. Your Lordship, Justice Mario Michel, Justice of Appeal of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. Dr. Elsie Laurence Chounoun, Deputy Resident Representative of the UNDP. Professor Archibald McDonald, Principal of the UWI Mona Campus. Dr. Aldrie Henry Lee, Acting Director of SALISES, UA Mona. Mrs. Elizabeth Emmanuel, Program Director, Vision 2030 Plan Development Unit at the Planning Institute of Jamaica. Representatives of the Commonwealth and CARICOM Secretariats and Directors of Youth Affairs across the region. Mr. Timothy Ferdinand, current Chairman of the Caribbean Regional Youth Council and other executive members of the Caribbean Regional Youth Council. Ambassadors of the CARICOM Youth Ambassadors Corps and the UISAT Ambassadors Corps. Representatives of other regional youth organizations and national youth councils, including Chairperson-elect of the Caribbean Regional Youth Council, Mr. Tijani Christian. What a wonderful list of persons to welcome this morning. Happy Caribbean Youth Day to all of you. We're so pleased to see you here. And we have this morning a few persons who will make some brief remarks to welcome you to this Caribbean Youth Development Conference. And we'll take them in the order they're noted on your program. And with that, I'll invite Dr. Aldrie Henry Lee, our Acting Director at SALISES, to welcome you.
Dr. Terri-Ann Gilbert-Roberts, Conference Chair, distinguished members of the head table, very distinguished members of the audience, our young people, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the SALISES Youth Conference, which is being held under the theme Youth Post-2015, Directions for Sustainable Development in the Caribbean. A very warm welcome to those of you who have traveled very far to be with us. And we are particularly pleased to host this conference as one of the several activities of the SALISES 50/50 Youth Cluster. And I want to commend Terri-Ann Gilbert-Roberts for formulating and inviting persons to join this cluster. The activities of this cluster are examples of SALISES fulfilling its mission, which is to undertake high-quality research and teaching in the areas of social and economic development policy, governance, and public policy, with special reference to small developing countries. And everything we do at SALISES is in keeping with the UWI's mission, which is to advance education and create knowledge through excellence in teaching, research, innovation, public service, intellectual leadership, and outreach in order to support the inclusive social, economic, political, cultural, environmental development of the Caribbean region and beyond. This is not the first time that SALISES has examined issues facing the youth in the Caribbean. In the past, we have had research by SALISES research fellows and students. However, this is the first time that we have dedicated an entire conference for 3 days on matters affecting our young people today. I want to commend Dr. Terri-Ann Gilbert-Roberts for conceptualizing and for organizing this conference, and also for being so courageous in a time when monies to host conferences are not as forthcoming as in the past. Her efforts and those of the members of her youth research cluster are to be lauded. Terry's Youth Cluster has already produced a special issue in the Social and Economic Studies Journal. Copies are available for sale outside, and I urge you to buy a copy. I assure you that you'll find all the articles thought-provoking. I am not sure if we'll have another occasion, or at least I may not have another occasion to show Dr. Terri-Ann Gilbert's our appreciation. I'm asking you to give her a hearty round of applause in appreciation of her efforts. We consider it a privilege to host such a wide range of stakeholders at this Caribbean Youth Development Conference. This is a year of celebrating young people by SALISES. We begin with this special occasion today, and later in November, we will host our 10th Caribbean Child Research Conference. This conference today is being convened as a special celebration of Caribbean Youth Day, and also to mark the adoption of a set of 17 new global goals for sustainable development, the SDGs. This moment in history is also significant because of the fact that the world has never been as youthful as it is today. About 20% of the world's population is between the ages of 15 and 24 years, and 60% is under 30 years. This demographic statistic suggests that we have both an opportunity and an imperative for development. We commend the work of the SALISES Youth Cluster, which aims at documenting youth contributions to Caribbean development, analyzing and evaluating youth development policy and practice, documenting good practice in youth development, and creating spaces for the inclusion of youth voices in Caribbean development debates. My hope, however, is that the conference will not only discuss the problems of young people, but also highlight the achievements that they have done, even in very difficult circumstances. We are here to commend even as we criticize. In fact, Terri herself, in her introductory article in the special SES volume that I spoke of, noted that in assessment of some 15 indicators, some Caribbean countries are ranked in the top 10 of 51 Commonwealth countries. For example, Barbados and Guyana rank 4th and 9th, respectively, for youth health and well-being. Jamaica, 8th for civic participation, and Belize, 9th for political participation. So we also recommend the achievements of our young people in the areas of sports, arts, entertainment, and academics. All is not lost, and we are very proud of our young people. But somehow we must find innovative strategies to engage and captivate the imagination of the young people who have not yet realized their potential. We want to strive for what Terri terms in her article, equitable inclusion. So, ladies and gentlemen, our theme, Youth Post-2015, Direction for Sustainable Development in the Caribbean, should be understood as a call to action for Caribbean stakeholders in youth development to agree on priority actions which reflect our own regional realities for implementing the SDGs. Ladies and gentlemen, over the next 3 days, we will ask you to make concrete recommendations for action with reference to plans and policies for youth development, programs for youth and development research. Please use the varieties of intervention, whether they are research findings, reflections on policy and practice, dramatic presentations, and concept notes to formulate innovative strategies for enhancing youth participation in the Caribbean. I warmly welcome you to the Caribbean Youth Development Conference and look forward to reading the output document, Agenda for Caribbean Youth Development Research, Policy and Programs in Support of the Sustainable Development Goals. Once again, welcome, and I look forward to your keen participation throughout the 3 days. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, just before Professor McDonald brings his remarks, I neglected when I opened this morning to offer apologies on behalf of Minister Lisa Hanna. Unfortunately, she had to attend another event this morning, and also to extend apologies from Minister Emlyn Pierre, Minister of Youth, Sports and Religious Affairs. For those of you who travel in the region, you probably will understand that she has succumbed to some of our intra-regional travel challenges. So she's actually on her way here now. She might just be seeing the shores of Jamaica, and she'll join us in a few hours, we hope. Okay, and with that, I invite Professor McDonald to deliver his remarks.
Dr. Gilbert-Roberts, Chair, Deputy Prime Minister, Honorable Sean Richards, Deputy Prime Minister for St. Kitts and Nevis, the Honorable Herman Longsworth, Minister of State in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sports from Belize, His Lordship Justice Mitchell from the Justice of Appeal of the Caribbean Supreme Court, Dr. Aldrie Henry Lee, Acting Director of SALISES, Mr. Ferdinand, Chairman of the Caribbean Regional Youth Council, Mr. Pouezat, the UNDP Resident Representative and UN Resident Coordinator, Mrs. Elizabeth Emmanuel, Program Director, 2030 Vision, Dr. Elsie Shunon, Deputy Resident Representative, UNDP, all youth representatives, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of the University of the West Indies, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome you to the opening ceremony of the SALISES Caribbean Youth Development Conference, as you heard, being held under this year's theme, Youth Post-2015, Directions for Sustainable Development in the Caribbean. From addressing climate change and gender inequality to taking steps to alleviate global poverty, the Sustainable Development Goals highlight crucial stepping stones that will aid us in transforming our world for the better. To build a better and more sustainable future for our global society, we must focus on the core issues that make us tick, that defines our relationships with one another, and which will ensure that we are building a future of prosperity for many generations to come. The university is indeed honored to be able to host a conference that places significant focus on a segment of society that we believe holds the key to ensuring our sustained and continued growth as a global community. That is, as you heard from our chair, the youth. Today's young people are tomorrow's leaders, thinkers and inventors, and therefore it is necessary to appreciate their influence and positionality within our society. Building a better, a bigger and brighter future begins today, and the university, along with our collaborators, is exceedingly pleased to be able to provide a platform to effectively explore the issues affecting Caribbean youth, particularly as they endeavor to navigate the waters of an increasingly globalized society. This conference will provide an opportunity for policymakers, researchers, educators, and public and private actors to engage in critical dialogue on issues affecting Caribbean youth. It will focus on the concerns that threaten their ability to meet the Sustainable Development Goals, while hopefully exploring effective responses that will aid in placing them on target towards achieving these international goals. As such, the diverse array of topics that will be addressed at this conference, as you heard before, from youth advocacy and governance to concerns related to education, the economy and social policy making that impact youth. These topics will provide a significant launching pad for greater public discussion and exploration. As an educational institution, we are pleased to host such a wide variety of sessions that will delve into the complex and diverse issues that define the identity of the modern-day youth and that present opportunities or restrictions to their growth as global citizens. On behalf of the University of the West Indies, I would like to extend my gratitude to the United Nations Development Programme, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO for short, and the United Nations Population Fund, as well as other public and private partners for their support in the staging of this conference. I would like to thank and indeed welcome the many conference participants who will be sharing and discussing their insightful responses to the theme of this conference. We are pleased to have been able to receive such a significant response to our call for papers, and I look forward to hearing some of your many contributions. Finally, I would like to acknowledge the work of the SALISES team in staging this critical conference, the UWI's first significant event for the academic year. We believe that conferences like this highlight our ethos in being the primary providers of important educational and public dialogue opportunities for our country. SALISES is once again paving the way in encouraging public thought and discussion on issues that impact our development as a nation and as a regional community. Thank you all for joining us for what will certainly prove to be an educational and insightful conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Principal. It's so wonderful to have the partnership of so many organizations, and in particular, we're pleased to have the partnership of the Caribbean Regional Youth Council. When we came up with the idea of hosting this conference, they said, well, this is the time for us to really have a big celebration for Caribbean Youth Day. And we want to work with you to ensure that we can make it something that's not just about hype and so on, but something that can get us to think critically about where we are. And so I'd invite Timothy Ferdinand to deliver his remarks on that.
Thank you, Dr. Terri-Ann, Gilbert-Roberts. Thank you for a good introduction and this conference in itself. I'd like to also register my appreciation to our distinguished representatives here today, including the Deputy Prime Minister from St. Kitts and the Honorable Minister Longsworth from Belize, His Lordship Justice Mario Michel from the Justice Appeal of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. I'd like to also register appreciation for directors of youth who have made themselves available today. We have professionals in the youth development field, members from the Commonwealth Secretariat, other distinguished members of the head table. Thank you for your support and participation in this conference, and good morning to all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of my fellow Caribbean Regional Youth Council executive and members, I bid you a very pleasant morning and welcome you to the SALISES Youth Development Conference under the theme Youth Post-2015 Directions for Sustainable Development. I must state that it is an honor for us to be partners with SALISES in delivering this conference. The Caribbean Regional Youth Council is currently in the process of officiating our partnership with the cluster, and we look forward to chartering new grounds as a regional youth-led body. We are also elated, as mentioned, to be having this conference in observance of the Caribbean Youth Day 2015. This is the second time that we are actually leading the charge in selecting the theme and getting young persons to participate in selecting that theme and having events and initiatives around it. And for us, we are very elated that we are actually having something of substance that we can use to actually inform how we go forward in terms of youth development as an organization and as a region. Having said this, I would like to say just a few things from our perspective. We believe that young persons deserve a lot more in this region when it comes to development and progress. I say this in the spirit of the late Sir William Arthur Lewis, who declared in his writings on the theory of economic growth that the advantage of economic growth is not that wealth increases happiness, but that it increases the range of human choice. Young people deserve an environment of growth and a vision of collective prosperity to which we can all contribute and benefit from. And it is primarily the duty of every nation to provide and protect the rights and freedoms of its people where that is concerned. As young citizens, we grow up with many expectations and choice. We expect that we will be faced or will be provided with opportunity and choice. However, upon leaving the school system, we often find ourselves shocked at the reality of our limitations. Limitations such as high unemployment, poor governance, weak economies, vulnerability to natural disasters, and a struggling process of regional integration. In shock, some of us, since our education system often fail to awaken students in time for the coffee of real life. Some of us are forced to wait in idleness. Others pursue alternate dreams and careers in whatever is available, but with no real commitment to these particular areas. Some migrate in the hope of finding better opportunities, and others choose to fight and oppose the reality we encounter. Some of us do that through leadership and advocacy, some through entrepreneurship and innovation. What we desire as young people is a society that is well built in anticipation of our productive capacity and potential. We enter the labor force with an overflow in desire to work, to produce something of value that our society needs, and all we expect in return is the freedom of enjoyment of a balanced life. However, for the most part, we have found ourselves laboring purposelessly on the downside of capitalism and in establishments without vision. Some of us operate as public servants with no sense of national progressivism nor regionalism. And over time, youth in our society have been rapidly evolving into souls of extreme individualism, hopelessness, and what we call flyawayism, as revealed by the 2010 CARICOM Commission report on youth development. Sadly, even the opportunities that our foreparents would have found in overseas territories are lessening. Rising unemployment in the United States and the United Kingdom also reduces on the opportunities that some of us seek. Even more recently, the United Kingdom reviewed its visa regulations, consequently clamping down on the freedom of non-EU students to work or extend their stay. The cost of studying in the UK, for example, has increased astronomically due to additional fees, such as healthcare charges. Europe is also now facing, as we know, a major migrants crisis in the midst of economic collapse in some of its member states. Our vulnerability toward external shocks and the negative influences of constant changes in the global policy environment has long called for a shift towards proactive governance and the building of resilience. Now, time will not permit me to paint a picture of gloom and doom. That's not why we are here, because also that is not the only reality. So it's one side of our reality. It is our hope that this conference will inspire the quality of discourse and solution-oriented ideas that our region needs. We must take into consideration what is already known, what has already been tried, and bring to light what needs to be done with such knowledge. This conference, therefore, takes place at a time when the region needs solutions for sustaining itself. We already know the strengths, the weaknesses, the challenges, and the threats, as well as the overwhelming environment as small island developing states. We know all too well the frustrations of our people and the constraints of our governments. What we do not know, however, is the extent of opportunities in the Caribbean and how these can be translated into reality or real change for our people. For example, it is time to incorporate the value of science and innovation in our pursuits within the blue and the green economy and our efforts to diversify our economies. We also need to reinvest in the social development of our people, refocus and set new priorities as a strategic region. We need to reinforce our systems and structures of integration, our values and identity as a people. We need to maintain integrity in our structures of law and governance, and most of all, raise leaders of integrity by investing in the potential of young people as a gateway to international influence and regional sustainability. Hence, the theme under which we are celebrating Caribbean Youth Day would be to refocus, reinvest, and to actually refocus, reinvest, and to reinforce youth integration for a sustainable Caribbean. It is in alignment with the SALISES conference, and we do hope that we can arrive at credible, sustainable solutions for acting upon what we already know as challenges to our region. With that, I thank you, and I look forward to a very successful conference. Thank you very much.
Friends, I don't keep getting up just because I like to speak at the mic. I'm just so excited that sometimes I keep forgetting things, and I have to keep standing so I can acknowledge just how overwhelming the partnership has been in terms of pulling together this conference. And the United Nations has been one of our principal partners on this. And I neglected to welcome this morning also the UN Youth Focal Point on Youth and co-chair of the Interagency Network on Youth Development from the United Nations, Nicola Shepherd. And with that, I also welcome Dr. Elsie Laurent-Chounoun to deliver remarks on behalf of the United Nations Development Program.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gilbert-Roberts. Distinguished Chair of the conference, Honorable Sean Richards, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Education, Youth, Sports and Culture, St. Kitts and Nevis, the Honorable Herman Longsworth, Minister of State in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sports of Belize, His Lordship Justice Mario Michel, Justice of Appeal of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, Professor Archibald McDonald, Principal of the UWI Mona Campus, Dr. Aldrie Henry Lee, Acting Director of SALISES Mona, Mrs. Elizabeth Emmanuel, Program Director, Vision 2030 of the Planning Institute of Jamaica, representatives of the Commonwealth and CARICOM secretariats and directors of youth affairs across the region, Mr. Timothy Ferdinand, outgoing chairman of the Caribbean Regional Youth Council and other executive members, ambassadors of the CARICOM Youth Ambassadors Corps and ambassadors and UWI Ambassadors Corps, it's a long list, representatives of other regional youth organizations and national youth councils. A very good morning to you all. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here today on behalf of the United Nations Development Program at this youth conference, which I believe over the next 3 days will bring much more information on where we want to be as youth post-2015. This conference will focus on youth post-2015 directions for sustainable development in the Caribbean. For us at UNDP and the UN, this conference is very timely. Indeed, it was only last Friday, September 25th, that the leaders of more than 150 countries adopted the Sustainable Development Agenda, which include the 17 new Sustainable Development Goals that we call SDGs at the UN Development Summit in New York. At that event, youth played a special role. Malala Yousafzai, the young Pakistani advocate for the education of girls and the youngest ever Nobel Prize winner, delivered a special address during the opening day of the summit. As she delivered this address, she was joined by youth from all 193 member states, including Jamaica, of course, representing the youth's hopes for and commitment to the realization of the global goals. I share this with you to highlight our recognition of the central role that youth must play if the post-2015 development agenda is to be achieved. In fact, the support from UNDP and other UN agencies to this conference signals our recognition of the centrality of youth to sustainable development. The SDGs are a bold attempt to address all the various aspects of development, from poverty and hunger to health and sanitation, from inequalities and gender inequities to education and decent work, from environmental issues including climate change to responsible consumption and production and sustainable cities and communities, from industry and innovation and clean, affordable energy to peace and justice and strong partnerships to achieve the goals. In looking at the agenda over the next 3 days, reflect the SDGs themselves in the context of youth. For example, there will be issues around youth and education, which is reflected in the Goal 4 of the SDG. We will be discussing youth employment and sustainable livelihoods, which is reflected in Goal 8 of the SDGs, decent work and economic growth. There will also be conversations on youth participation and inclusion, which are reflective of Goal 10, which is around reduced inequalities and gender equality. And Goal 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions, will be demonstrated in the discussions on resilience building, on crime, violence, and insecurity, and on governance and politics and youth. In looking at directions for SDG for Caribbean youth, we encourage everybody to learn more about the SDGs, to know what targets your countries will set, and to figure out how you, as young people, will be able to work towards supporting the achievement of these bold new goals, which envisage a world with no poverty and no hunger by 2030. We all have a voice in this endeavor, and we have to be part of the movement. On Monday, just this past Monday, UNDP had a social good summit here at UWI, in which some talented young people shared with us how their work in media and technology will contribute to that achievement of these goals. It was for me, it was a very instructive summit to see the wealth of talent that Jamaica has. We had 6 young people who demonstrated to us how they're already working in technology for the SDGs. And the audience was very informed and very interested to learn about the SDGs and to learn how they can contribute to this. So we have to encourage this effort from all aspects of society. This summit was the start of UNDP's efforts to share information about the new Sustainable Development Agenda and the goals with young people. We hope to be able to organize similar events in the future, and we would certainly look forward to your input and participation. In 2013, UNDP and the UN organized post-2015 national consultations in Jamaica. Actually, we work with SALISES. They were the main driver of this for us. Also, youth was quite involved in these discussions. Dr. Terri-Ann Gilbert-Roberts was our main partner in doing those national consultations in 2013 in Jamaica. In 2014, we also sponsored 2 youth delegates to attend the UN Economic and Social Council Forum on the post-2015 development agenda in New York. We also facilitated 3 regional youth consultations on localization of the post-2015 agenda, looking at the best ways to implement it in Jamaica. Thus, the UN has accompanied the government of Jamaica since their existence, supporting their development goals. Vision 2030, Jamaica, is very much in line with the SDGs. However, while much has been accomplished globally and locally over the past 15 years, thanks to the targets set by the Millennium Development Goals, there is much more to be done. And this is where the SDGs come in. These goals are important to all of us and have implications for all of us. The UN Secretary General has described them as a blueprint for a better future, a to-do list for people and planet. Going forward, we are developing in Jamaica a community rejuvenation project with special focus on youth, which we will share later on during this conference with you. A critical pillar in the project is youth engagement in addressing social development challenges in Jamaica. The involvement of youth in this process is vital to ensure its sustainability and effectiveness of social cohesion efforts. As such, we look forward to participating actively in this conference, to learning from presenters and participants here, and to sharing our resources and knowledge with you. I hope that through the presentations, remarks, rich discussions, we will all have a better understanding of what these goals are, how they provide a plan and a picture for our shared future on this planet. Most importantly, I hope we will take home with us, and the young people particularly, how we can support our countries in the attainment of these goals. UNDP congratulates the conference organizers, particularly Dr. Terri-Ann Gilbert-Roberts, on your vision and hard work, and look forward to a successful event. Let's work together with these new goals, new power, and new energy to make the SDGs a reality by 2030. Thank you.
I'm pleased to welcome Mrs. Elizabeth Emmanuel from the Planning Institute of Jamaica, another one of our partners for this conference, to deliver remarks.
Thank you, distinguished Chair, Deputy Prime Minister St. Kitts Nevis, Honorable Sean Richards, Honorable Herman Longsworth, Minister of State, Education, Youth, Sport and Culture of Belize, His Lordship Justice Mario Michel, Justice of the Appeal Court of the OECS, Professor Archibald Gordon, Principal of the UWI Mona Campus, Dr. Aldrie Henry Lee, Director of SALISES, Dr. L.C. Lawrence Chanoun, Deputy Resident Representative of the UNDP, Mr. Timothy Ferdinand, Chairman of the Caribbean Regional Youth Council, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and most importantly, the youth ambassadors and the youth among us, our future Caribbean leaders and leaders of the world, good morning. For those of you who are here from overseas, the Planning Institute extends a warm welcome to our shores here in Jamaica. The Planning Institute of Jamaica is proud to be part of this important dialogue on youth development, and we must congratulate the Sir Arthur Lewis Institute of Social and Economic Studies and its counterpart, the Caribbean Regional Youth Council, for taking the lead in the planning and execution of the first SALISES Caribbean Youth Development Conference being held here today. I would like to share with you a profound quote by Albert Einstein that sums up the importance of youth participation and engagement in development and the tremendous possibilities youth presents in the achievement of sustainable and inclusive development. He said, "All that is valuable in human society depends upon the opportunity for development accorded the individual." It is this sentiment that currently guides the approach we must take towards the active engagement of youth in development, where our youth are not only seen as beneficiaries of and participants in development implementation, but also as active agents in how development processes and results are defined, articulated, and managed. Today, our youth in our region in the Caribbean are demanding to be heard and seen as leaders within all facets of life, including the halls of state and local governance, all levels of the education system, health promotion, entrepreneurship and productivity, climate change adaptation, and the family and community, to name a few. In 2014, the global youth population was approximately 1.8 billion, the largest it has ever been. The majority of these youth reside in developing nations, which have been touted as the major drivers of the global economy post the 2008 economic crisis. The demographic bonus presented by a large youth cohort can, within enabling business environments and favorable market conditions be translated into increased productivity and wealth creation among developing states. The possibility of sustainable economic growth and wealth creation are not elusive dreams, as skilled and empowered youth are engaging in innovation, technology, media-based and cultural and creative industries as they seek to establish comparative advantages utilizing local and indigenous knowledge and resources. The size of the youth cohort has also presented development challenges, including high levels of unemployment, three times that of the adult population globally, and twice that of the adult population in the Caribbean. Many of our Caribbean youth face physical, sexual, and emotional abuse, higher levels of involvement in crime and violence as perpetrators and/or victims, and inadequate education, certification, and marketable skills. Realities that we all know too well, and realities that they share with many youth across the world. Youth development is recognized as a cross-cutting issue in the Sustainable Development Goals, and it is the responsibility of each Caribbean state to ensure that youth development concerns are adequately reflected in national development planning and implementation frameworks, and that there are structured and formalized processes for youth mainstreaming. The region has already made many advances in this regard. Institutions, structures, policies, and programs have been developed and operationalized to promote the protection and capacitation of youth to tackle development challenges and be key drivers of sustainable and inclusive social and economic development and growth. Jamaica has demonstrated recognition of the significance of youth involvement in its Vision 2030 Jamaica National Development Plan. In fact, in the development of the plan, in the plan development process, youth were given a voice to determine how they felt, what they felt Jamaica should look like by 2030, and more importantly, what they felt a developed country was, what they wanted to see. When we say developed country status under Vision 2030, it was the youth of Jamaica that we turned to determine what a developed country for Jamaica would look like and what this would mean to them. The plan was utilized also as the guiding framework to inform Jamaica's country position on the SDGs. And there is a high degree of alignment between the goals and outcomes of Vision 2030 Jamaica and the SDGs. Vision 2030 Jamaica, as many of you are aware, our country's first long-term development plan, is implemented through a series of three-year medium-term socio-economic policy framework. And the third MTF, which covers the period 2015 to 2018, is slated for completion and dissemination by December 2015. During the MTF process, youth played a key role in the development of MTF 2012 to 2015. In fact, we had a specific workshop for youth. Just that age group of youth. The adults were the facilitators, but we heard from the youth. In the MTF, youth development priorities are reflected as a cross-cutting theme throughout the 15 national outcomes and given targeted focus along with children on the national outcome number 1, a healthy and stable population. The preparatory work to develop the MTF, as I said before, included the engagement of children and youth and highlighted that there is much to do to realize effective youth participatory development by 2030, both to achieve Jamaica's development goals as articulated in our National Development Plan, as well as the Sustainable Development Goals. Today, we challenge state and non-state actors to address the threats to development that face our youth and to create the environments that would facilitate increased youth participation in development processes and in planning. How much of our of our lives are we willing to dedicate to the achievement of sustainable and inclusive development that effectively meets the needs of Caribbean youth? The Planning Institute of Jamaica is ready to play its part in advancing the development of Caribbean youth and our youth right here in Jamaica. And we want to give them a voice in development planning. We have started, but we recognize that we have much more to do. We will do this as we all work together here in Jamaica towards achieving our national vision as encapsulated in Vision 2030 Jamaica for making Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. Thank you.
Distinguished members of the head table, thank you so much for those remarks and your call to action. We have a lot of work ahead of us. Those of you who have had a look at the program know that we have long days, but we've done that so that we can maximize this opportunity. It's rare for us to get so many different stakeholders together in one place, speaking about the same thing, talking to each other rather than about each other. And so we have to use this opportunity. I thank you all for being here. I thank all our partners. Please do download a copy of the program. We've tried to be environmentally friendly by not printing too many programs, but we will have schedules on the doors for those who are less technologically savvy and have challenges. There are also barcodes that will be around those who would like to scan to download the copy of the program and the abstracts of papers that will be presented. And before we start, I'd just like to say that today, let's not forget, as we heard, there are many challenges that we still face in terms of trying to meet the goals we've set for ourselves internationally, regionally, and nationally. But today is Caribbean Youth Day. Today is the day that we start our conversation, not with the problems of youth, or youth as problems, but we talk about the contributions that youth, our young people, are currently making to development. And we talk, therefore, about how we are going to enhance that contribution, how we're going to support their drive, their pursuit of continuing to make contribution. And with that, our first roundtable this morning, we're going to talk just about that. We're going to ask some of our young representatives to talk to us about what they're doing, what their peers are doing, and how they think they can play a role in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Welcome to you all, and let's get to work. Thank you.